It's happening again, as it looks like the New York Rangers are falling back into some bad habits from their early season struggles, some weird decisions from Peter Laviolette, and two poor performances from two players in particular we're going to break down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the New York Rangers, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, the New York Rangers look like, as of late, they were playing some great hockey. They were to come into the new year up until probably, this past weekend. And I mean, even when you look at the Colorado Avalanche game and the way that ended, you can forgive them. You can say, all right, stuff like that happens sometimes over the course of a season. It looks that much worse in the standings when you don't get a point there because of the hole that they dug themselves in earlier this season. But at the end of the day, stuff like that happens over the course of a season. I think you can forgive them. But last night, it's a poor performance. It is a poor performance from a lot of players. And I wanted to bring this up first because some of the players we're going to be mentioning are on this list. And the Rangers have a massive decision to make this offseason, regarding who they're bringing back, who they're going to re-sign, and who they're going to let walk in free agency. And there are some interesting things to this. So Miller, obviously, he wants a contract extension. He wants a significant raise. That was an actual report, and his agent is asking for a significant raise. And I don't think that he's going to get it from the New York Rangers, at least. And I wonder if there is a trade there because, again, the way that his contract's set up, it would probably have to be a trade or they would have to give him a raise. And I mean, he's going to make more money. We know that. But how much more money is the real question. If you look at his stats so far this season, it has not been a good season for K'Andre Miller. And it's not just the stats. I mean, look, he plays a lot. He averages almost 22 minutes of ice time. That's up there in the league. I mean, a guy like Quinn Hughes is playing 25 minutes a night, for example. That's, something out of the ordinary. This guy plays a lot of minutes and he eats a lot of minutes for this team, but it doesn't mean he's giving them effective minutes. It's been a tough season. When you look at his stats, 11 points in 44 games, you would hope that there was some more offensive production there. But when you look at the defensive side of the puck, and not just defensively, alone, even offensively, the hockey IQ has not been there the whole time, really. And especially this year, it is glaring with a lot of guys being moved off of, like, for example, Jacob Trouba. So, with him being 25 now and right in the middle of, what you thought, he would be a regular NHLer at this point. You would think that, he would have developed already and you would see signs of like the player he's going to be, more often. And we're not seeing that. So again, he plays a lot of minutes. I don't know if they're really effective minutes. The hockey IQ is not quite there. And, for his size, all the stats, all the playing time aside, for a guy his size, he does not nearly play physical enough, not even close to what he should be for his size and what we know he can do. This is a player that shies away, I think, at times from the physicality of the game, which is something that, you just can't. You just can't. If you're playing defense, if you're playing top 4 minutes for the Rangers, you just can't. So he's been struggling this year. And the game last night, I think, leaves a poor taste in a lot of New York Rangers fans' mouths because, they worked hard to steady the ship this month, right? The fact that they're even where they are right now, considering they're not just the start of the season, but more so, November and December, is unbelievable. But the mistakes that they made last night, turnovers in transition, blown coverage in the D zone, and that's been a problem all season, especially from the centerman, felt a lot like what we saw during the December meltdown. And you can't afford many games like this when this is the way that the wild card standings look. And if you take a look, I mean, it is so tight right now. I mean, the Rangers are still absolutely in the mix, but a loss like that, a loss to the Colorado Avalanche, back-to-back losses, the way that those turned out could be detrimental to their playoff chances because, again, it's so tight. They can still absolutely make it. They're, in sixth place there. But if you look at the top there, Tampa, Boston, still very doable. They're only a couple points behind, so that is not a huge problem. But again, you want to pick up those points when you can, like a game last night and like a game against the Colorado Avalanche. And I mean, listen, like I said off the top, it's a game where you can forgive them, but still, those points are up for grabs, right? So that was a tough loss last night for that. And this is an interesting point from Snark Messier that I saw. And, a lot of people are on the fence, I'll say, about JT Miller. And maybe not on the fence. You're on either side of the fence, right? I feel like the fan base is completely split 50-50 on this from everything I've seen, to get JT Miller or to not get JT Miller. And I just thought it was an interesting point that I think if you're Chris Drury, you're actively watching this dumpster fire transpire, and you're calling Vancouver when it ends and getting that trade accomplished. Not because JT Miller is the missing piece, but more because this team needs a spark. And I think that that's a very interesting point. I think that this team absolutely needs a spark at this point, right? You need just something. And we know that there was rumors of it being Lindgren and Filipino for JT Miller. I think you do that trade. I absolutely think you do that trade. I think JT Miller would add a spark to this team, get them into the playoffs. Will they win a Stanley Cup this year? I don't think so. They're not built that way, but JT Miller is still relatively young. He's only in his early 30s, and I think that if the Rangers can really, retool on the fly here effectively, then they can be back in the Stanley Cup picture in a little bit. They do have great pieces. Adam Fox is still here, right? Like, if you get JT Miller, that's a great piece. Lafreniere, we saw flashes of what he can be if the team is rolling, right? So you have the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. So the pieces are still there if you were able to retool on the fly effectively. And I think Chris Drury has an opportunity to do that. Is he going to take it? I don't know. Is he going to execute it properly? I don't know if we've seen that. So, now, on the other sides of things, right, NYR Louis, and a lot of fans agree with this as well. I like JT Miller. I do. He's a good player. But if you watch the Rangers and think the difference between them beating a Florida or Carolina is upgrading from Hedl to JT Miller, you have no idea what the problems with the Rangers really are. Now, again, I think it would inject the spark. I think JT Miller is a great player when he's engaged and he's playing for a team that, wants him and he wants to be there. I think that he would inject a spark, but again, he's not the problem with the team. Getting him is not going to fix the majority of the problems. You have to retool. You have to make some other moves as well, and a lot of it has to do with the defense. I think they got to retool the defense. I love Will Borgen. I think he's brought a lot to the table since he's been traded here. Bad night last night for Adam Fox. I mean, look at everyone at the bottom there, right? I mean, like, Lafreniere's not having a good second half whatsoever. He hasn't really played well since October, really. I mean, consistently at least, but Ryan Lindgren's at the bottom there. I mean, everybody. Panarin had a terrible game, but we can forgive him, like I said in the last video, for the season that he's having. Keandre Miller near the bottom. Like, a lot of guys just not having good performances, and some shocking, just all of it is mental to me. This whole thing with this team this season is 100% mental. I mean, Vincent Trocheck on this breakaway, the game is 1-0 at this point with less than a minute left in the second. This is a winnable game, a very winnable game. He drop passes this. If you didn't watch the game, you're just seeing the screenshot. Oh, I wonder what happened on the breakaway here. Trocheck drop passes this. Like, why would you ever do that? It looks like the Blake Como play from a couple years ago when he was on the Colorado Avalanche and drop passes to absolutely nobody. It was very similar to that. Again, talking about the mentality and stuff like that. Mika Zibanejad, confidence, all-time low. He's 1 for 11 on breakaways this season. He has 11 breakaways this season. He scored on 1. He cannot figure it out this year. This is all mental with this team. It is one of the craziest things I've seen. And speaking of the mental aspect of the game, the mentality, this is somebody I've talked about on the channel a lot. Zac Jones. I think he should be in the lineup. I think they should probably make a trade here. Maybe Ryan Lindgren, move off of him and give Zac Jones some more playing time. It's the only way he's going to get better. A lot of people and a lot of fans talk about, oh, there's still holes in his game. The only way he's going to correct those things and get better is to play actual games in the National Hockey League. So this is from Johnny Lazarus. Zac Jones' mentality hasn't changed. A minute ago, he had his head buried in his computer. He flipped the puck a few feet away from him and startled Johnny. And when he looked up, he had a big smile on his face. So, Zac Jones is always doing his best to stay positive, even though he hasn't played in a while, and he's been a healthy scratch. So love to see that. Talked about him on the channel quite a bit. But yeah, I think just the duality of mentality on this team right now is just, can't score on breakaways. You're making ridiculous decisions on breakaways for other players. And then Zac Jones and some of the younger players trying to keep positive, right, which I think is good. But a tough couple games there. That is for sure. I mean, you hate to lose that way against the Avalanche. Tough loss against the Carolina Hurricanes, and you need to get back in the win column ASAP because the Four Nations face-off is coming up and you're slowly losing your position in the standings. You're right in the mix there. Now you're a couple points back. So it's going to be an interesting next couple games. But again, let me know what you think in the comments, but I think it's all mental with this team. Can't figure it out, making some weird plays. Keandre Miller, the hockey IQ, the whole thing, the mentality is they got to get back on track, and they need a spark. And I wonder if that comes via trade. Sometimes that works. I don't think if firing the coach will work with this team. I really don't. They've already fired 3 of them, so why would we go down that avenue once again? But let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.